I don't know how anyone can ignore the fact that Letitia James over and over and over said, vote for me. I'm going to sue Donald Trump. And nobody said, that's something we don't really tolerate here in the United States. If you want to say vote for me and I'll crack down on fraud, vote for me, I'll crack down on gang activity, vote for me, I will crack down on driving while intoxicated. Okay, you're talking about a crime. But when you say vote for me, I'll get Donald Trump, that means you've predetermined that you're going to go after an individual, regardless of, you're going to go after that individual, regardless of any evidence of a crime. Play that campaign clip.
And what would you say to people who say, oh, I'm not going to bother to register to vote because my voice doesn't make a difference, or I'm just one person?
I say one name, Donald Trump. That should motivate you. Get off your ass and vote.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
I love it. He probably does already.
Who cares about the rule of law? Vote for me and I'll get him. Joining me on the program right now is Bryan Rotella, founder and managing partner of Genco Legal, GencoLegal.com. You worked on the Trump campaign in 2016, right?
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, I briefly during the primary, I did.
How are we supposed to take it when somebody running for office in a law enforcement capacity says, vote for me and I will get this individual for you? Now, she didn't say back then, I know he's up to, I have evidence of a crime or it's been whispered to me. It's show me the man and I'll show you the crime.
Well, Andrew, I have a question that I don't know that anyone's really asked. For Donald Trump's opponents, has he done anything legal since he came down that escalator in 2015? I've represented a lot of clients over the last 23 years. I'd ask the question, what has he done that they actually think is illegal? I mean, this is to the point of when you're talking about all of the different things going back to Russia all the way up to the alleged mishandling of records at Mar-a-Lago after he was president. I ask the question to folks all the time, what do you think he did that's legal? It seems they think that everything he's done is illegal. I heard you mention earlier a great quote from Stalin, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. This seems like Victor Hugo, right? That they think Trump's not a criminal. They think he's crime itself. And that goes to me, to me, the two words that the public really should know. And I mean, if I were working with the Trump campaign, I would be getting into the public conscience because I think it would expand. A lot of people would have more empathy for Donald Trump. It's called absolute immunity, but not about him, about prosecutors in this country, Andrew. I have clients all the time that ask me this question. They'll be dealing with something, and let me be clear, there are some great attorneys working with the government, and I deal with them regularly. But I have clients that'll be sitting there going, I'm dealing with a case for 2-3 years, right? They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they can't fight back. They can't file a lawsuit against the prosecutor. Now, I don't know that a lot of people understand in our country that there is this principle of absolute immunity, which essentially means that someone like Donald Trump, the citizen, cannot file a suit against Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis, Smith, or any of these folks for malicious prosecution. And I think that's something that a lot of people might have empathy for who have been on the other side of even just one government investigation and certainly don't have the means that Donald Trump has. Because quite frankly, I don't know how, if anything, he's turning into getting back to Victor Hugo like John Valjean.
Well, when you have, I guess we're supposed to have faith in checks and balances, but we know that there's going to be whatever the process would be, state by state for removing some of these prosecutors, there's really no downside, right? If you've got, there's really no downside for these prosecutors. If you've got a Democrat governor who's in support of what you're doing, then I guess, or a Democrat, legislative body, or even still, let's say Fannie Willis gets removed from the case and it gets tossed. Even if she loses her law license, she's going to write books, give paid speeches, go on all the television programs, probably be supported to run for Congress. There just seems to be no downside to this sort of abuse of authority?
There isn't. There isn't. And if it feels un-American and it feels like it's not constitutional, in my opinion, it is. Our wonderful police officers, they have something called qualified immunity. We've certainly seen cases brought against police officers, haven't we, over the last few years? And the reason, again, explaining absolute immunity and qualified immunity means essentially you have to find that there was something that they did that was really willful with what's called malice, with an intent to get the person that they were going after if they're, let's say, in a police capacity. With absolute immunity, it means it doesn't matter how egregious the conduct of one of these state attorneys or district attorneys or U.S. attorneys does. Basically, what our laws here in the United States and courts have said, we don't want to allow people to bring lawsuits because of the fear that ultimately, if you let anyone bring a lawsuit against a prosecutor, the court systems would be overflown, Andrew. They would be just grounded in all of these suits. But there's no empirical evidence for that. I mean, for one thing, again, I represent clients all the time. You know how hard it is to go up against an army of government lawyers that are being paid by tax dollars instead of the billable hour? My firm doesn't do the billable hour, but it's a different story. But that is something that, if it feels un-American and unconstitutional to you and our audience, I feel it is, and I feel it's something that would help the Trump campaign as they're out there. Quite frankly, if I were advising him and his legal counsel, I would file a malicious prosecution case against Fannie Willis in Georgia, potentially. I would at least consider it, even knowing that they're going to claim absolute immunity and she's going to claim absolute immunity, especially if there's a finding that she gets disqualified. At the very least, he can get it into the public conscious and start educating folks who are out there who may be dealing with this in businesses, including small businesses, every day of the week, and going, you know what? When somebody is investigating me, whether it's the IRS or the Department of Justice or some state attorney general, and it feels so wrong, how come I have no redress? How come I have no ability to fight back?
Well, do you think there's an element of no one in the Democrat Party, even if they know, look, and they can hate Trump just as much, but still say, you know what, I don't like the guy either, but what we're doing is setting awful precedent and is either unethical at the least and unconstitutional at the worst or best, or whatever way you want to phrase it, that if you say that as a Democrat, you'll be exonerated from the Democrat Party. No one's going to go, you know what, you're right. We don't like this guy, Donald Trump. We really don't want to be president again, but we're going about it all the wrong way.
I agree. Look at Merrick Garland, right? I mean, a lot of arguments about when he was up for the Supreme Court and what happened with the passing, sadly, of Justice Scalia. And ultimately, that Merrick Garland wasn't ultimately put on the court. A lot of people think that may have created some precedent that we didn't need. Well, think about it in the situation that you just laid out and what we're seeing here. And where is there, John F. Kennedy wrote a great book, Pulitzer Prize-winning book called Profiles in Courage. Where is the profile in courage to say this is, I am sorry, $354 million for, at least they're finding, I'm going to still call it allegedly, changing or altering what your property value is for tax purposes or for getting a loan? Andrew, does the public know what Purdue Pharmaceuticals is ultimately going to have liability for with the OxyContin and how many people were killed? They're right now, that's in front of the Supreme Court because those individuals ultimately may be getting basically off free. Now, they've paid a lot of money, but the way they're doing this is as if Trump is comparable to the Sackler family, that there's documentaries all over the place on Purdue Pharmaceuticals and OxyContin. I don't know when the Trump family, and I'm an Italian American, I don't know when the Trump family became the sixth organized crime family of New York. I need that explained to me. But that's what it certainly seems like and feels like.
Yeah, it's not enough that they're going after him. They're going after Don Jr., Eric. But here's something I don't get. And look, I think I have a pretty good grasp on the Constitution and, in essence, the law, but not the procedural side of it. If there is no one claiming the fraud, if Trump borrowed money and the lending institutions that loaned him the money accepted his valuation of his property and they gave him what was considered great terms on the loan, and the loan was paid back, right? Who is the victim that Letitia James is getting justice for?
It's a victimless quote unquote crime. It's a complete victimless, quote-unquote, crime, and that's where I made the comparison to what you dealt with on the other side with Purdue Pharmaceuticals and what happened with the Sackler family and OxyContin and the sad true pandemic that's in this country of people dying of fentanyl abuse. Shouldn't we be spending our tax dollars there instead of Letitia James clearly in your clip showed it in the lead into this, which is that it was for political motive or political purposes, it appears? And one thing I think we got to bring up, and I don't know a lot of people saw this, it was kind of buried in this, but two of the individuals were not Donald Trump, Eric Trump, or Donald Trump Jr. One of them was the former CFO and the other was the COO. I don't know if you saw this. Those two are banned for life from being in the financial management of companies in New York.
That's insane.
Banned for life from the financial management. I mean, what is this, Pete Rose? And gambling on baseball? I mean, Andrew, from a legal perspective and take, supporting Trump out of it, this is Alice in Wonderland for a lot of us in the legal profession. And I know a lot of folks that lean on the other side. It's not what our laws are supposed to do. And to your point, where is that profile encouraged? Because if this thing flips over and you have the same thing happening to, let's say, a Democratic candidate or a Democratic former office holder, that's every bit as bad, in my opinion. It's completely un-American and it's completely unconstitutional. And I feel it is the best, not to make a political comment here, but from a legal perspective, Donald Trump, the more he can say, what in the world is absolute immunity for these prosecutors? And is there a time that we need to look at this? Because he says it best. If they're coming after me, they'll come after you. And you can't fight back.
You know, it's funny. I always think of the scene in the movie The People versus Larry Flint, where Alan Isaacson, his lawyer, says, I don't like what Larry Flint does, but I want to live in a country where he's allowed to do it. That somebody should be able to say, I don't like Donald Trump, and I don't want him to be president of the United States, but I'm not willing to burn the Constitution and the justice system to the ground to stop it.
I couldn't agree more. And remember, what is one of the largest lobbies to the Democratic Party? The trial lawyers.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, I've been on both sides. I represent companies now, and I'm happy to do it, especially companies doing a lot of great stuff in emerging industries like healthcare. But the trial lawyer lobby, where are they? Because they certainly are out there for things like consumer advocacy, but where is someone standing up going, this doesn't make any sense? Where's the Civil Liberties Union? Where's the ACLU? Because it's Donald Trump, and to your point with Larry Flint, Donald Trump should be the poster child to them. If they don't like him that much, what's going on to that with Donald Trump should be the poster child for the ACLU. We can't let this happen. I mean, if folks understand that these trial dates stay, the trial date that he has in March and the trial date that he has in August, he's essentially going to have to be in court all the way through the primary and general election campaign.
And that's what it is. And that's what it is. I got to leave it there. It's my top of the hour music. Bryan Rotella, founder and managing partner at Genco Legal, Genco, Genco legal.com. Thanks for joining us. Third hour next, Sirius XM Patriot.